Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Representative Id Gyang, member representing Barikin Ladi Federal Constituency, brought under matters of urgent public importance on the massacre of over 215 persons in Plateau State. And this motion will require that the House consider it as urgent and also consider suspending the relevant rules under our orders, Order 8, Rule 4 and 7. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the matter be accepted as an of the motion. Say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable ID, you can now move the motion.
This motion is jointly sponsored by my humble self, Id Gyang, with Edward Gyang Pojok's son, Honorable Solomon Bulus Maren, Honorable Timothy Golu, and Honorable Jumbo Shekarau, on the massacre of over 215 persons in Plateau State. The House notes with shock and disbelief the massacre by killer herdsmen of over 215 persons, both young and old, men and women. Neither were children and toddlers spared. These are barbaric acts of man's inhumanity to man, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, which constitute the worst forms of wickedness and cruelty. Further notes that the outpouring of outrage and condemnation by Nigerians and the international community, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, the US, a session of the UK House of Lords, worried by the huge loss of lives and property and consequent bereavement by many families and communities. Concerned that not less than 15 villages and communities were destroyed in the well-coordinated attacks and mass killings, including Ganarop, Bet, Rankok, Rapomol, Ratatis, otherwise known as Dora Babuji, Boom, otherwise known as Maraban Kantoma, Ngar, Ruku, Soy, Tisan, Kachin, Kazok, Zargok, Kurawirom, Exlans, Shonong, and others in Bassa, Bokos, and Mangu local governments. Further concerned that analysis of previous killer herdsmen attacks has shown that they are usually guerrilla in nature, using sophisticated arms and machetes. Villages that have been completely sacked in Plateau State include, but not limited to, the following: in Barikin Ladi, 22, in Riom, 18, in Bassa, 5, in Bokos, 7. So far, 52 villages affected that have been totally sacked. Worried, dear colleagues, that the attacks have a pattern where once a community is attacked, it is cleansed by killing the native inhabitants, the houses burned and destroyed, and the vacated land taken over for occupation. The cycle is repeated and the pattern replicated in what has clearly manifested as a land-grabbing agenda. Further worried, dear colleagues, that the attacks, mass killings, and land grabbing is being perpetrated without an appropriate response of the nation's security. This indecisiveness, inadequate response, and seeming apathy of government has emboldened the killer herdsmen to continue in their acts of terror, ethnic cleansing, and land grabbing. Disturbed by the malicious destruction of hundreds of hectares of farm crops of the natives by herdsmen in a bid to cause hunger and economic strangulation of the natives, and further disturbed by the slow and ineffective response of NEMA, which aggravated the humanitarian tragedy. Perturbed, dear colleagues, that even while the President and Vice President visited Plateau State and gave assurances of security and safety, the attacks and killings persisted and extended to the burning down of not less than 5 churches, all in a bid to provoke a religious crisis. Further perturbed, that virtually all theories known to peace building and dialogue have been experimented on the Plateau, yet it has neither restrained nor stopped the land-grabbing motivated attacks and killings. It is therefore glaring that it is not the absence of dialogue, but the fact that engendering lasting peace will defeat the intentment of the killings, which is the land-grabbing agenda. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the House applauds the rare display of humaneness and value for human life by the Chief Imam of Ingar, Malam Soho of Hausa extraction, who, along with one Abbas, a Yoruba Muslim, graciously shielded and kept many natives in a mosque at the risk of their own lives from the rampaging killer herdsmen. Indeed, these two deserve national recognition and honor. Aware that the Constitution in Section 1441, Sub 1, permits every Nigerian citizen to reside in any location of his choice without let or hindrance, the exercise of this right, however, does not extinguish the right of other citizens, especially host communities, to the ownership of their ancestral lands and customary heritages, or to peaceful cohabitation. Mr. Speaker, dear honorable colleagues, the House therefore resolves to 1, condemn the killing and massacre in the strongest terms. 2, government must take decisive action to stop the killings and secure communities that have been under persistent attacks. 3, the over 52 villages currently under illegal and forceful occupation in Barikin Ladi, Riom, Bokos, Bassa, and Mangu local governments should be recovered by government and the displaced owners resettled on their ancestral land. To do otherwise is akin to allowing a criminal to retain the proceeds of crime. 4, the masterminds and perpetrators of the attacks and massacre should be arrested and prosecuted, and there should be a coroner's inquest and forensic examination of the weapons and ammunition used to determine the cause of death, caliber, and source of the weapons used. 5, urge Mr. President to go beyond verbal condemnation of the attacks to taking decisive and practical steps to give effect to Section 14, Sub 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, which places the primary responsibility of government to the security, safety, and well-being of citizens. 6, direct NEMA to provide immediate relief to the IDPs to avert a humanitarian crisis, and a special reconstruction fund should be set up by the federal government in this regard. 7, urge an overhauling of NEMA so that it can respond effectively in emergency situations. 8. The National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, should immediately revisit the Constitution review exercise to empower states to establish state police for effective community policing and maintenance of law and order. This is as a result of the fact that the current security architecture of the nation has failed to bring an end to violent attacks across the Federation. 9. The House Committees on Army, Air Force, Police, National Security and Intelligence, and Emergency and Disaster Preparedness to ensure implementation and report back to the House within 3 weeks for further legislative action. And finally, we urge this House to observe a 1-minute silence in prayer for the souls of the departed. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Motion, say aye. Those against it, say nay. Ayes have it. May we please rise and observe a minute silence. May the gentle souls of the departed rest in perfect peace. Amen.